in my opinion, and everything I post on this channel is just my opinion, too many DJs spend too much of their time trying to get better at DJing by DJing. And I wrote something about this, and I was talking recently about like how I used to practice. And this was back when I was still relatively new at DJing, and so while I still think that this is useful information for everyone who's DJing to hear, the information and the methods that I'm describing are definitely the most useful to the newest DJs, the ones that haven't had enough time to sort of sit in their art and figure out exactly what it is they're doing or going for yet. And hopefully this will help you sort of figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to create and learn more about how close you are to what you're trying to create. Because it can be kind of hard to tell, even if you know what you want, what the difference is between that and what you're currently doing. So I think that there are three parts of, well, I think there are a lot of parts of DJing, but I think that there are three large parts of DJing that can be practiced at will. Things like reading a crowd are hard to just go and practice on your day off. And the three larger parts that I'm going to talk about should, in my opinion, there's the O word again, all be served equally, and a lot of people tend to ignore one or even two of them. Practicing a skill is like working out, and it's not much good if you only practice one aspect and you skip leg day. So I'm going to call these three disciplines the eye, the ear, and the hand, because the names are cool. So the eye of the DJ is the ability to find music that people will like. And depending on what you're playing and what you're doing, this could mean a lot of different things. If you're a wedding DJ, it might mean basically having access to every song that's been popular since 1960. If you play underground electronic shows, it might mean having music that nobody has heard yet. If you play frat parties, it might mean whatever popular hip-hop, rap, and dubstep is currently in the charts. Whatever it is, the eye of the DJ is being able to find that music, download it, and have it ready at a moment's notice. And you can practice this, and you should be spending time practicing this. You can dig on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. You could search for record pools that are in the demographic that you need to be in. You could stay up to date on Spotify playlists curated by people you really respect, or label owners or other producers. This is an important part of DJing, and it shouldn't be ignored. Now, the hand of the DJ refers to mechanical skill. Obviously, beat juggling and scratching are sort of mechanical aspects, but even things like being able to hit play on two decks at the same time and barely have to nudge them to keep them in line, knowing a new song's BPM and knowing the BPM you need to get it to, and being able to move the tempo fader to pretty much where it's going to need to be before the CDJ even loads up the track and shows you the BPM, so that once it does show you the BPM, you're already right there. You just need to make a minor adjustment and the song is ready faster. Things like looping and beat pad routines, chopping, these are all mechanical skills of the hand that you can practice directly with just minutes on the board. If you own a controller or a CDJ, or even just you're mixing with mouse and keyboard on your computer like I used to do, these are things that you just need to spend time practicing. And I think this is the most common method of DJing practice. It's the one that's most obvious. You want to get better at DJing, so you spend time DJing. And even if all you want to be able to do is beat match, putting minutes on the equipment is really important. And I don't think that it's 100% necessary. In fact, I know it's not 100% necessary because I don't own any equipment. I haven't owned any CDJs or controllers in 5 years, maybe more, something like that. And I just prepare my sets on mouse and keyboard, and then when I go to the venue, I just execute it because I know what I can do. So I just plan to do things that that I'm comfortable with, that I know I can do. But I still spend time in Rekordbox figuring out the mechanics of what I want to be doing, and that's an important part of the discipline. Even the most seasoned DJs get rusty eventually, and even if it is like riding a bike and you need to spend 5 or 10 minutes during sound check to get back into the swing of things, and then everything starts flooding back, that's still 5 or 10 minutes that you could eliminate just with regular practice. Maybe you're going to be late to sound check, and that 5 to 10 is the first 5 to 10 of your set. You don't want to be rusty on the intro. The ear of the DJ is, I think, the least practiced third of these disciplines. And it's the reason that I'm making this video, because it was something that massively helped me when I first started DJing, and I saw a noticeable improvement even month to month. But I did this for like 2-3 years very regularly, and it helped me make the kind of performances that I wanted to make. And the nice thing about it is it's morphic, so it can help you make the kind of performances that you want to make, regardless of how similar they are to what I was doing. So the ear of the DJ is responsible for knowing what sounds good. That's the entire methodology. And to be a DJ, I think that implies that you have some amount of faith in your own music taste, because it would be kind of ridiculous to assume that you don't know what good music is, so you're going to take the onus to get on stage and play music for everyone for an hour. Naturally, as music sharers, you have to believe that you have at least okay taste. You have something that you're providing to the listening experience. And when we as DJs mix and we feel like it went well because we feel good and we sounded good, and we should know if we sounded good, right? Because we're the ones with good taste. Then we show our performance or our set, or we talk to somebody who was there and we show it to our friend, and maybe they're not as excited. And this especially comes up if you're a newer DJ and you're in your bedroom and you're recording a set and you're like, oh, that blend went so well. And then I flipped it into that other tune and it sounded so good, and all the effects I was doing totally added to everything and it was awesome. And then you show it to your friend and they're kind of on their phone the whole time and they're not really paying attention and they're talking over the mix and they don't seem as excited as you are. I mean, they'll still compliment you and they'll tell you that it was good, but you can kind of tell that they're just supporting you. They're not enjoying it as much as you enjoyed it. They must have bad taste. They must not know what good music is. This is your job, right? You know. And that's why you do this, obviously. So maybe they don't know what they're talking about. I think this is a really bad line of reasoning, and I think that there's a lot of reasons for that, but two important ones are, when you heard the mix originally, you weren't really listening. Think about how much you could pay attention to a movie that's on while also doing something as mentally taxing as beat matching. How much of your roommate's hour-long story do you actually remember that they told you while you were trying to scroll through your library and find a song in the right key and of the right tempo that thematically fit and was a good energy level to go after the song that's currently playing, but you only have 16 bars left until the breakdown, and maybe you should just play the second drop and mix out of the outro, but you don't want to do that, and so maybe this song will work, and then you load it up and then you realize, no, this isn't going to work, there's vocals in the intro, and so you have to go and find another song. You're distracted. You're very distracted. And the second reason is that you're emotionally attached to your mix. You made something and you're showing it to someone else. And so in that moment, that mix is representing you. It's an extremely vulnerable way to interact with art. And I absolutely envy the artists like my father that spend most of their time interacting with their art in a way that is just for them. And they don't need to gauge how the quality of their art based on the reaction of other people. That is an incredibly positive way to live, and I encourage you to have at least one outlet in your life that doesn't respond to anyone else's opinion of it, because it's incredibly freeing. But especially if you're a newer artist, you may not be at a point where you're ready to deal with the kind of criticism that you're going to get and the kind of criticism that you might need to help you improve. You care about this a lot, and then you make it and you put time and energy and passion into it and you show it to someone else and they say it was okay. That doesn't feel good, even if they're right. So in order to improve, we need to find a way to take away the distractions and take away the emotional attachment to mixes we make so that we can listen critically and listen exclusively critically with no other baggage. And I think we can accomplish that by doing it in a way that no one else is going to hear it. And not only do you need to do this, you don't need to, obviously, but not only do I think you should do this, I think you should do it regularly as possible. And you may have at this point figured out where I'm going with this, so I will finally get to the point. I recommend that you make a mix, even a small one, every single day, if you can. 5 days a week is great. It's a great routine to be in. You can take a weekend off. It's always nice to have some days off. Treat it like a job. Maybe every work day after dinner, you tell your family or your roommates or whatever that you have to go upstairs and you slam a 30-minute recording. Maybe you freestyle a little. Maybe you do some tricks or routines you've been practicing. Maybe you're playing some new music that you found that day or over the weekend and you're trying to see if you can find ways to mix it or blend it with other music that you've been loving lately. This is the opportunity to be creative and take risks. And it doesn't matter at all if you absolutely bungle it and you have to cut to silence and then start again and bring something back up. So make a 30-minute recording. 30 minutes is an approximation. You can make it as long as you want, but I like 30 minutes every single day and throw it on your phone that night and then listen to it throughout the day. You can listen to it as you get ready in the morning or on your commute or between classes. When I was in college, I used to mix every morning before classes, and then I would listen to that mix 3 times. I would listen to it on the way to work, or on the way to school, and then from school to work, and then I would listen to it at the end of the night before going to sleep. And I would just have it on as I'm like getting my stuff ready, or I'm playing it while I get in the shower, and you're just listening to it. And then the next day, you do it again. And I would recommend, and you don't have to do this, but I would really recommend you delete the last mix when it's time to record the new one. And obviously, if there's gold in there, feel free to save it or write down what you did so you can try it again the next day and see if you can do it cleaner. Lord knows a lot of my favorite moments in mixes were stuff I stumbled upon by accident while just flipping through stuff, but you should in some way get rid of it. Because when you're in the habit of getting rid of these 30-minute freestyles, then they don't matter. Remember how we talked about how you have a good ear? That's why you're doing this. You aren't listening to your sets like a fan would. You're listening to your sets like a DJ would. And the problem is that most people that are listening to your sets are not DJs. You should be listening to your set as a fan would as often as possible. It's literally free practice. Skip the next audiobook, make a phone call later that you usually do in the car, turn off, I was going to say NPR. I don't know how many DJs listen to NPR. Probably some of them. It's probably more of a techno and liquid drum and bass thing. Burner House, maybe? I don't know. But there are times in your life where you're forced to do so little with your brain and your ears. And so you fill that time while you're doing something with your hands or your feet or whatever else. You fill that time with just random nonsense and random stuff. And even, it doesn't necessarily have to be nonsense. It's stuff you enjoy. And that's good. But you could fill that time with free, zero effort practice instead of just throwing it away. I absolutely promise if you start listening to yourself freestyle every day, you will hear things that you didn't hear while you were making the mix. You'll start noticing transitions that you could clean up a little bit that sounded pretty good when you did them, or problems that you could prevent, or tricks that sound maybe a little bit more jarring than you had originally thought. The tendency of newer artists to use the effects section on their controller a bit too much is well documented, and I think almost everyone goes through that phase of, oh, I got a DDJ-SX and it has this cool beat pad and a flanger and a transformer, and you want to play with all those new tools because to you as a DJ, especially when you're starting, it's very easy to fall in love with the fact that you are making something new. And the love of making something new with music that you are really passionate about can sort of overshadow the fact that new does not mean good. And I distinctly remember I found my old Mixlr account, which has since been wiped, and it's a tragedy. Absolutely gutted about that. But Mixlr hosted all of my live streams back in like 2012, 13, 14, when I would live stream to like 2 people and one of them was my mom. And I would go back and listen to those mixes as recently as like 2019, 2020 or something. And I'm obliterating the songs. Daft Punk did not need me to fiddle with their tracks so much. They knew what they were doing when they made it. I could have just left it alone and it would have been a much more enjoyable experience. But at the time, I was a new DJ and I was really excited and I wanted to do things to music. That was why I started DJing, and that was why I fell in love with electronic music as opposed to more traditional forms of music. I used to play trumpet and then I realized what you could do with computers and I completely pivoted. but I let the excitement of that pivot, as a lot of people do, brainwash me into thinking that I should be doing things. And if you listen to your own mixes every day, you will quickly get very annoyed of how often you use the slip roll function. The slip roll function is not as cool as you think it is when you first pick it up for almost everyone. And you'll learn how to use the effects in the way that you actually like listening to them as a passive consumer of the auditory product. And you're the person with the good ear. So this tool is not designed to help you make sets that sound perfect or right in the way that I make sets. This is a universal practice method because it sets you up as the neutral arbiter of what your own music should sound like. It lets you completely judge with no other attachments the product you're making and refine it into something that you can be proud of, so that when you get used to that process and you get really good at it, you can know that you are, while you're mixing, you can have confidence that the end product, the thing that the audience is hearing, sounds like you want it to sound. It sounds as satisfying and as busy or as empty and as high or as low energy as you want it to sound. Pacing, I think, is one of the hardest things to get used to as a DJ, because some people just want to play out entire songs, and then other people think that's too slow, because if I wanted to listen to the entire song, I would just go on Spotify. And other people try and do a new transition as soon as they can get a track loaded, because they think the more things they do, the more they are doing, and therefore the better the performance is. And there are times and places for both of those situations, but it's up to you to figure out, as someone who's listening, what is a good pacing that feels good? What can you dance to? How long does it take you as a person to get tired of what's playing and want the next thing? And that's something that I just don't think you can really get a good grasp of while you're trying to mix and you're doing so many things all at once, and especially while you're new and there's all of these ideas and conflicting advice from people online and that one DJ that you know, and you're worried about if you can submit this because you really want to submit this to that local club because you think you're ready to do an opening slot. That shit is all getting in the way of you figuring out what sounds good. So eliminate all of that. Record a short mix every single day. Listen to it at least once, and then get rid of it. Because at the end of the day, 99% of the people in the room aren't trying to listen to your mix while performing. 99% of them are just listening.